Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we're taking a pretty breathtaking journey together. We're going to unpack a radical paradigm shift, one that bridges established hard standard biology with some truly mind-bending cosmic philosophy. We'll be looking at an incredibly ambitious editorial and philosophical project known as the Prism of Odysseys. Specifically, we're zooming in on Extension IX. This is a document slated for July 2026, which attempts a complete cartography of the human brain through 5 simultaneous visions. But, we aren't just looking at the brain as a biological organ today. We're exploring the concept of the mind as a literal cosmic instrument, so prepare to have your perspective totally shifted.
Okay, let's dive into this. The bold central axiom drawn directly from our source material states, "The brain is the antenna. The brain is the signal." This single phrase sets a profoundly ambitious tone for literally everything we're about to explore today. It completely shatters that conventional view of our minds as just passive computers trapped inside a bone shell. Instead, it proposes that our neural architecture is actively interacting with the very fabric of the universe itself.
Now, before we get into the biology, we really need to understand the source itself. The Prism of Odysseys isn't just a static text. The author defines it as a metapoetic architecture. What that means is it relies on a rigorous canonical design system that transforms simple web pages into living documentary volumes. It maintains a perfectly coherent visual and intellectual identity as it builds meaning. It's essentially an open-ended work designed to generate new understanding, carefully maintaining a strict boundary between established science, active research, and highly speculative cosmology.
To make sure we don't get lost in the cosmos here, here's our epistemic scaffolding for today. We're going to start with the prism's architecture, move to the brain as antenna, explore the signal emission, examine the cosmic substrate, and finally, we'll look at redefining neurodivergence.
Section 1. The Prism's Architecture.
The prism categorizes the escalating capabilities of the human mind using a universally understood analogy, a radio communication regime. Think about it. First, a system is a receiver, simply capturing frequencies that already exist in the environment. Second, it becomes a transmitter, producing entirely new signals out into the ether. Third, it acts as a relay, receiving, amplifying, and retransmitting. But it's this fourth stage that really pushes the boundaries. The prism proposes that at a highly advanced regime, the system actually becomes the substrate. It no longer just emits into the ether, it contributes to the constitution of the medium itself.
Section 2. The brain as antenna. Let's look at the biological hardware of the human head. Now, what's really interesting about this is the core concept that absolutely no two biological antennas are identical. In engineering, every single physical property determines the frequencies an antenna can emit and receive, as well as its bandwidth and directivity. Our brains follow this exact same logic. Depending on your anatomical form, the trace metals or alloy in your blood, your position within the Earth's magnetic field, and your metabolic energy, your brain captures a completely unique slice of reality. You are, quite literally, tuned differently than the person sitting right next to you.
Let's look at just one of those variables to put it into perspective. Form. 2,200 square centimeters. That represents the average surface area of the human cortex. But it's all folded up inside your skull, right? This folding is called gyrification. The source material points out that the depth and density of these cortical folds vary from person to person by a factor of 1.5 to 2. Because electrical currents flow along the surface, a highly gyrencephalic brain, one with really deep, complex folding, produces drastically distinct geometric fields compared to a smoother one. So the specific folding of your brain radically changes the physical geometry of the electromagnetic fields your mind produces.
Section 3. The signal emission. Let's step firmly into biophysics. Before we get into anything too esoteric, we absolutely must ground ourselves in established science. The first law of thermodynamics states that energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. The human brain is a thermodynamic engine operating far from equilibrium. It consumes 20% of your body's energy. That's around 15 to 20 watts of continuous power, literally about the same as an LED light bulb running inside your head. Through Maxwell's laws of electromagnetism, we know that the electrical firing of billions of neurons creates magnetic fields. This energy, whether it's heat, endogenous acoustic waves, or brain waves measured by an EEG, it doesn't just magically vanish at the edge of your skull. It redistributes right out into the environment. And here is where it gets incredibly fascinating. This is a real game changer. The brain literally emits a coherent internal light. Yeah,
actual light. These are called biophotons. Active scientific research shows that living cells emit these ultra-weak photons. The Prism highlights that these biophotons travel along the myelinated axons of our neurons. This means our brain isn't just an electrical grid. Actually, scratch that. It's more like it features a parallel biological optical network, a fiber optic system made of flesh, operating with quantum coherence. It completely changes how we have to view neural communication.
Section 4. The speculative cosmic substrate. So the crucial point here is that the Prism of Odysseys is a deeply rigorous document because it strictly honors its epistemic boundaries. It never asks you to believe in magic. It categorizes exactly what is hard fact, like thermodynamics and EEGs, versus what is active research, like those biophotons we just talked about. And it clearly labels what is purely speculative hypothesis, specifically tachyons, which are theoretical particles that travel faster than light, and the idea of a transcosmic substrate. We always know exactly where the science ends and the daring theory begins.
Which brings us to the concept of the transcosmic substrate. In the speculative framework of the Prism, a highly trained, intentional mind transitions from being a local emitter to a cosmic substrate. The hypothesis here is that if the brain alters its operational regime through intense focus and training, it no longer just broadcasts electromagnetic noise into the local room. It actually becomes part of the very substance, the energetic medium, through which theoretical tachyon information propagates across the cosmos. In this view, the boundaries of the mind are no longer fixed by the anatomy of the skull.
Section 5. Redefining neurodivergence. Let's bring these massive cosmic concepts back down to a deeply human reality.
This leads to what is perhaps the most controversial, yet fascinating framework in the document. Look at how the Prism attempts to ethically reframe our understanding of conditions like autism spectrum and bipolarity. Where traditional psychiatry identifies a pathology, a deficit, or a system overload that needs suppression, the Prism proposes viewing this as high-fidelity sensory tuning. It suggests reframing symptoms as protective biological functions in a nervous system that possesses a hyperacuity to external electromagnetic and sensory fields. Essentially, it explores taking away the label of broken and replacing it with highly sensitive.
The Prism frames neurodivergence not as an error, but as mathematical fidelity, proposing a reframing of psychiatry centered on the protective functions of trauma. Take a brain on the autism spectrum, for example. It often operates heavily in high-frequency gamma waves, upwards of 40 Hz. This state of hypervigilance rapidly exhausts the brain's ATP energy reserves. Why? Because, according to this framework, it is constantly processing the invisible reality around it, the subtle electromagnetic fields, the environmental shifts, with absolute unrelenting precision. It is an antenna operating at maximum gain, capable of decoding the universe at a level the average, desensitized brain simply filters out.
Which leads us to our final thought for today. Through the architecture of the Prism, the thermodynamics of our neurons, the light of our biophotons, and the profound sensitivity of the neurodivergent mind, we really have to ask a staggering question. Is the human brain merely observing the cosmos, or is the cosmos finally observing itself through us? I highly recommend digging deeper into the Prism of Odysseys to explore this paradigm shift for yourself. It really changes everything about how you view that incredible machine inside your head.